Oxbridge.
Yep. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you can see and hear us. We're
Bobbing and weaving.
lining up. So we're all in kind of three of us at the same time. We're just using a slightly different system, which is why we are just a couple of minutes late. So apologies for that, guys. Hello. So we're going to be talking about, the fact that a lot of you guys have got your UCAS deadline this week, but there's loads of other stuff we can talk about as well.
Yes, so those of you doing medicine, veterinary, those and Oxbridge applications, you have an advanced deadline for your UCAS application, which is coming up. So we're going to go through that in a little bit of detail. You guys are generally pretty well organized. So there's probably, if you've got any questions for us, we're happy to field those. With the A-level exams, the October exams kicked off actually last week, didn't they? First A-level biology exam was today, so paper one. I would love to know if you did the exam for me in biology. Let me know your exam board. Write down a list today whilst it's fresh in your head. List of questions, all the topics you can think of, the different math skills and the practical skills that came up in today's paper. Do the same for paper two, and then I'm going to do a session with you all just doing my predictions for paper three, but only for paper three once you've told me what the topics were in paper one and what the topics were in paper two. So you've got some homework to do first.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about the content of the Chem 1 papers from last week. There's a couple of people in our new forum, just dropping that in there, talking about how the chemistry papers went last week, but nobody actually posted anything in there about what the content was. So actually, for all these exams, if you go into the TT forum in the new common room that we've got, the new course, then just start a thread and just EdXL paper 2 from chemistry this week or paper 1 from biology and maths, then go in there and just write down what the topics were of those questions. We'd love to know because we can't see the papers, can we? So Oxbridge, medicine, dentistry, veterinary, all that. So it's very serious now. You guys have obviously got the deadline of Wednesday. Has anybody already handed those in? Okay, any year 13s already handed in their UCAS forms, just released it to the wild. Basically, I mean, it doesn't really matter if you leave it down to the deadline. I mean, I would ideally last kind of chancellor and get it off tomorrow. But I think, we are thinking of you this week. It means you've done all your UCAT. It means you're happy with your personal statement and obviously what your firm choices are for your UCAS form as well. So if anybody's already sent those off, what have you applied to do? Where have you applied to go? We'd love to know. Because just before that, last week, we released the TT Common Room with advice. Part of that is, UCAS advice from our ex-students and BAs and so on and so forth. So hopefully you guys have found that and found it useful as well, because there's a whole bunch of, there's Hannah that's gone to do chemistry at Oxford. There's a couple of medic students in there as well as a dentistry student. So some really good advice from those students in there.
Rich, could you confirm the deadline? Because there's a message saying that my school has said all Oxbridge applicants, including me, get UCAS checked off on Friday the 16th, but the deadline is Friday the 15th. Which one is it?
Deadline, as far as I'm aware, is Wednesday the 15th of October. Is it Wednesday 15th or Thursday?
Thursday 15th.
Thursday the 15th. So yeah, that's the deadline. That's what I've read from the UCAS website. So Thursday the 15th is the deadline for Oxbridge and medicine and dentistry and veterinary and all that sort of stuff. If you want to keep tabs on your deadlines and things, guys, also in the TT Common Room course, there is a UCAS timeline there on a PDF that you can download and put it on your wall, stick it in your pencil case, do whatever you want to do. But it's got all the key dates in there when you've got to apply for your finances, when the deadline is, obviously, for UCAS, when you've got to have your final kind of firm and insurance choices in as well. So like literally everything's in there on one kind of page. So make sure you download that the rest of your year 13s, because you'll need to know exactly when these deadlines are and stuff.
Yeah, so there's a few people in there just saying, so AM is reapplying to do medicine again. So where are you applying to? What are your options there, AM? And Megan also doing Imperial, Cardiff, Leeds, Lancaster. Yeah, Megan's a great source of information. She's been really helpful in the chat over the last couple of weeks. She's come to my live classes and she's really well organized. And yeah, so if you've got any questions, then she's also put them into the chat and Megan can help you out as well as we can. Sorry, Ronnie, I cut you off there.
Oh no, I was going to say thank you to Megan. Megan's saying if anybody's got questions, then like let her know as well, because she's going through the process and can sort of share some of her experiences and stuff, which is really, really nice. Thank you, Megan, even though Megan doesn't do maths.
Yeah.
Still love Megan.
She's not perfect then, Ron, no?
She's not perfect, but she's close.
Rich, if you see any questions
I'll just quickly answer this about further maths. Why don't I do further maths? Because the further maths has got huge amount of choice. So you're just doing this module, this module, this module. But for me to offer it, I would have to create basically 6 times the size of a normal size of course. And the number of people doing further maths is much, much smaller. And also the number of people doing further maths who need help with maths is much, much smaller. So those are the reasons for not doing further maths. Sorry about that.
Rich, if you see any questions that you want to feature, then you
can there you go.
From up there.
There you go. There's one. So this was some snooker gaming regular here on our TT Live. So thinking of applying for medicine, but want to take a gap year and defer, or can I just apply next year? Rich, you any takes on that from yourself? You took a gap year, didn't you?
I mean, for me, the benefits of doing a gap year are huge and various. We're in a bit of weird times right now. I worked for 6 months and then went traveling for 6 months, and I found that it massively improved my confidence and my individuality. I was able to be much more independent. So I would massively advocate taking a gap year. And yes, you can apply next year. I don't know. Does anyone know, in terms of applying for medicine specifically, sometimes I've heard rumors that universities don't like you to take a gap year, but I'm sure if your application is strong and if you in your gap year you work on something that is related to medicine, maybe you do some volunteer work, maybe you work in a care home, maybe you do some care aid work, like if you build your medical CV whilst you're doing your gap year, then I don't think it will damage your application at all. You actually should be further ahead than those students who obviously haven't had a year to focus on doing additional work experience and stuff like that. It would just show your dedication a bit more. So I'd definitely take a gap year if you have the choice.
Nice. I'm not sure. There's one from Emily here. Any advice for entrance exams, specifically the physics aptitude, since you haven't learned much A-level physics? Sadly, obviously, we're not A-level physics. But in terms of aptitude tests, I'm sure there's some good resources out there for that kind of thing. Sadly, we're not experts in that field, but somebody out there will be, and I'm sure there's a load of YouTube videos and there'll be a website to help you with that sort of thing as well. So yeah, I wish we could give you info on that one, but sadly we can't. Any other questions you guys have seen that you want to pick up on? No, I was just reading something.
Well, a couple of people are talking about interviews and preparing for interviews, and also preparing for like the extra things like the Advanced Extension Award or the physics aptitude test, where these things where they're sort of outside of the school curriculum, but you still need to do them, and like ways to prepare particularly for interviews.
Well, there's going to be a little bit in our members course for that in the TT Common Room. I don't think that's published just yet. That's a sneak preview coming in the future.
Yeah, that'll be before the end of the month. We'll have the interview section up and running, because I know most people start having interviews beginning November. So we'll make sure we get that up and running before the end of October.
I see lots of people applying to Cardiff, my old university, for medicine. So sending yours in tomorrow. Queen's, Belfast, King's College London, Liverpool and Cardiff. I had a great time at Cardiff. I know a lot of the medics there. So I'm sure that, they really enjoyed the teaching. And medics, it seems fairly universally, are quite, they work hard and they play hard. Let's put it that way.
Question from Andre. I'll put that down here, actually. I'll put these down here so we can see them better. So what's the TT Common Room? Is it free? Ronnie, do you want to tell them about the TT Common Room?
Sorry, multitasking.
Oh, were you? Well, I'll do it if you want.
I've done it.
Okay, go on.
Right. Well, it's not free. No, it is part of what you get for being a member of TT and the TT community. So one of the things that we have just introduced is this new common room area where everybody who is a TT member can get together and share ideas and discuss questions that are sort of not spec specific. So if you've got a question like, how do you differentiate this? You go into the maths course and you put it in the differentiation lesson. But if you've got questions about interviews, about UCAS applications, about taking a year out, about finances, about how an exam went, about, all those sorts of things, then actually getting advice and opinions from the community of students is actually probably more useful to you than getting advice from us, because those are the people going through it at the same time, or maybe they went through it last year and they're still contributing to that TT community.
Yeah, that's it. That's where most of the advice comes from. We've got bespoke pages for, how to write a personal statement, how to, how to choose your university and what course you're going to do. And of course, like Rich mentioned before, we got the interview section coming up. But the vast majority of that information there and the advice is from students who've been there, done it, and been successful as well. So rather than just hearing it from us, and a fair few bits and pieces about that kind of thing, but it's a little while ago since we did that kind of stuff, and maybe the goalposts have moved a little bit, and so you're getting the most up-to-date advice that you can from our BAs and previous students, which is awesome.
Yeah, just going back to things like taking a gap year, just touching back upon that, like the benefits my judgment is that by taking a gap year and going out into the world and ideally moving away from home for a little bit of time so that you are fully independent during that time, you're going to really, I don't really want to say grow up, but you will mature during that time. You'll have to fend for yourself. And that by doing that, when you walk into an interview, you'll be way more comfortable, because during that gap year, when you're away from home and maybe in a foreign country, maybe not, you'll be in uncomfortable situations that push you outside your comfort zone a little bit, and you'll get familiar with how that feels and how to deal with it. You'll come through them all, and you'll realize that you can do this on your own. And then those sort of frightening and scary situations like being in an interview, you'll be calmer, you'll be more confident, you'll present yourself better. And so those sort of intangible benefits are everywhere after that. That's what I found from my personal experience and from my university experience. I was actually put in a halls of residence with other people who had deferred, because I applied with a deferred entry, did my gap year, and then went to university. And they grouped us in accommodation, and our group of students were way more mature. Like we could cook for ourselves, we could do our own laundry, versus 18-year-olds who've come straight out of home and they'd never left home before, and they didn't really have the first idea of how to be an adult or survive in the real world. So there's lots of benefits to it. So yeah, if any of you are feeling hard done by, you haven't had the results go your way, that you can't, that you're thinking about reapplying, it's not the end of the world. There's lots of things you can do to build your CV, to make your, to sort of self-improvement. There's lots of things that go on outside the world of just academic grades that you can do to make yourself better in interviews or stronger applicants, and just spend your time wisely this year and it won't be wasted.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that as well. I didn't have a gap year, but yeah, I was a bit kind of lackadaisical in my year 12 when I started my A-levels. I was typical like, I didn't have to try that hard at GCSEs. I don't have to try that hard at A-levels, and ended up with 3 U's in my first year. So I resat the first year. So I did 3 years. I was a year older than everyone else at university. And actually that made a big difference to me, especially since I'm not actually trying very hard as well. So I tell you what, this is probably one that most people are thinking about right now. Will exams be cancelled this year? This comes probably off the back that last week, I believe that the Scottish Government announced that there are not going to be any higher fives this year, or level fives this year, which are basically the Scottish equivalent of GCSEs. It's all going to be based on teacher assessment. But as far as I'm aware, that doesn't count towards the higher, is it the higher nationals? I forget. A-levels in Scotland, anyway. But they are definitely going ahead, the A-levels in Scotland. So, you know what? I think we can only play what's in front of us. And right now, there's no sign of the government or anybody, there's no ripples of we're going to be cancelling the exams this year. One thing I would do, though, is learn from this year. Learn from what's happened this year, in the respect that, okay, if exams are cancelled, then teachers have to give their best grade towards you. Yes, okay, all the kind of debacle of that on one side, your teachers are there to give an honest predicted grade, or a calculated grade. So what you need to do is just make sure you're on point. None of this, I didn't think mocks were worth revising for and this, that, and the other. They absolutely are, to give you an idea of where you're at, but even more importantly now, to give your teachers an idea of where you're at, because at any point, the government could turn around and say, well, 50% is going to be based on your teacher assessed grades and 50% you're doing one exam at the end of it. So you don't want to get caught out. So I think it's really, really important for year 12s and year 13s this year to stay on point, to try your best for every single homework, for every single mock exam or little test that you've got, because you need to make the right impression that you are kind of on it and you're working hard and you mean business in terms of getting the place that you want at university. So the answer is no right now, but it could change, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think because it was such a problem and it reflected so badly on the government last year, we're pretty confident that they will do everything they possibly can to run the exams, because they don't want another situation that they get deemed to be being biased. And maybe they'll be delayed a little bit. Again, from your perspective, assume that everything is happening as normal. And then if things get delayed, have some extra revision time. Lucky you get a bonus. The other things that I'd suggest is that the A-level exams are probably less likely to be cancelled because there's fewer A-level students. One of the difficult things in schools is the management of the space, physically spacing you out. If you have to do socially distanced exams for GCSEs, you have way more students, and that's a way bigger logistical challenge. For A-level group sizes, it's much more physically practical to sit the A-level exams than the GCSE exams. So it's possible maybe the GCSEs will get cancelled again. I think it's unlikely. They will move heaven and earth. They'll do absolutely everything they can to have the exams go ahead if they possibly can, like renting like town halls and extra space outside of the schools if they have to. But assume they're going ahead. I think A-levels are very likely to go ahead. Maybe they'll be delayed, but I'd say that that's our best advice right now.
Yeah, because there has been rumbling, hasn't there, about, there's this delaying of A-level exams. There's been nothing official yet. But, like the rumour mill is in full effect as usual, isn't it? So there we go. Play what's in front of you. And right now, I think so.
Andre just boosted the exam grade by at least 1 or 2 by finding out about the TT revision method.
Nice.
So one of the things that happens with maths is that students revise by doing a paper and then looking at the answers and seeing, I just did a stupid mistake, and then this one I didn't understand, going through the mark scheme, okay, I get it now, and then they get a new paper and they repeat that process and repeat that process and repeat that process, and their grade just stays exactly where it is. But because it takes like 2 hours to do the paper and then 2 hours to go through the mark scheme, and then you do another paper, and you don't really realize until after you've done like a week or 2 weeks of revision and you feel like, I am working so hard and my grade isn't going up. And that's because that process does not work for learning maths. It feels like it should work, but it actually doesn't improve anything. So your grade will just stay the same. And people like search for more and more and more questions, but the way they use them doesn't actually make their grade go up. So what the TT method does is teaches you how to use questions to boost your grade, to make your grade actually go up really, really quickly. And it's fairly straightforward. There's quite a lot of nuances to the detail. It's based on a lot of research and a lot of experience, and it's been sort of refined and refined. So there are nuances that really it is super important to stick to the rules and not kind of use it as a vague idea, but really stick to the rules of the method. But we're always on hand to answer questions. And we're also now doing Sunday sessions for second years. So you are going to you've only got 20 Sundays between now and your revision starting. That's with a couple, there are 24. If we take 1 off for Easter and a couple off for Christmas, that's 20 Sundays. And over that time, you're supposed to be somehow revising all your AS. And this is true for all your subjects. So we're now running a TT revision method special each Sunday for second years to have that time to get advice on how to revise the first year stuff and to just create this little pocket in which you can work as part of a team with us to work on your AS. So that's any subject that you want to do. You could even use the Sunday sessions and do psychology or physics or something else if you wanted to.
Yeah. I think what you're saying there, Ronnie, about the TT method is absolutely true. Like you say, especially for maths. I think you got some big love going on in the chat for those maths sessions and people seeing big gains in short space of time. I think it probably takes a little longer for the biology and chemistry. Would you agree, Rich?
Yeah,
just because I think it's content heavy, isn't it? So
much more knowledge rather than skills, and like learning and locking in that knowledge. I mean, they're different strategies for the different subjects, but you can still see quite a lot of improvements in a short space of time, but probably you're talking weeks to months to really solidify it.
Because it's a targeted approach, isn't it? It's like do a paper, have a look at the answers, move on, like Ronnie was saying, but actually using the TT method, you focus on the bits. It's targeted, isn't it? It's like, well, I've done this, and there's no kind of algorithm in the world. I don't care if you're using quantum computing to figure out, if you fill in a multiple choice quiz, it's like, oh, you're good at this and not so good at that. No, the best thing is to actually physically have a paper in front of you, analyze it yourself, and then the results of that analysis will tell you what you can and can't do, why you got things wrong, how you got things wrong. Like I said, there's no algorithm in the world that can tell you that. So that's why, we're pretty... we're an online course, but we're pretty old school. Pen and paper is the way forward. And at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to, isn't it? You guys, your pen, your calculator, and a piece of paper in an exam room. So that's the way you should be studying and the way you should be improving. So, yeah, well, that works.
The interaction between the first year content and the second year content, certainly in maths, can often make second years feel that certain topics are really, really difficult. And really, when you actually look at the work, it's not the second year part of it that's causing the problem, it's the first year part of it. And students can be revising difficult second year topics when actually all it would take is one person who is a professional teacher to look at their work and say, you're wasting your time, this is what you need to do. So that's the idea of us being involved in that TT method and helping you, is to make sure that you are really targeting the exact thing. The whole point of TT is that for every second that you put into your revision, you get as much possible grade boost as you possibly can from that second that you put in. So it's really, really condensed and focused, and you're going to see much quicker improvements using the methods and the techniques that we suggest and support you with than the usual way of studying and revising.
Yeah, absolutely. And like all of these things, they do absolutely work, but there's one, they're not a magic bullet. They are not, it's not a pill that you can swallow that will make you better at biology overnight. You still have to do the work. We can give you the framework, we can support you, we can show you the path, but ultimately, if you're the one who needs to walk down that road and put the effort in, and you see the people who've was it AM who just said that, yeah, right there, the first exam today, and the first time you've ever left the exam hall feeling confident, feeling good, that is probably 90% your work, your hard work and effort and energy. We've just pointed you in the right direction. You let us know in the chat, how much was TT responsible for that, and how much was your school responsible for that, or how much of was your hard work that went into that. But we know what works because we work with so many students, and we spend our lives analyzing and finding the most important ways to find those little improvements. And we know what the exams are, and we know how to improve you at them, but you still have to do the work. And if you do that, we promise you, that's why we have an improve a grade money back guarantee, because we literally see thousands of students do it every single year. It's not just something we're doing as a gimmick. If you do the work that we suggest that you do, you will 100% go up a grade. It happens.
We got a question from Awo.
I think.
So what are the other lives? So Rich does his on a Tuesday between 6 and half 7-ish. So that's for biology. Mine's on a Wednesday at 5:30 till 7:30. So the first 40 minutes we're doing year 12 stuff, and it's the same for Rich. So the first third is year 12 content. The middle third is all skills. So that's basically, really important for everybody. Of course, year 13s, we recommend you come to the year 12 stuff as well because it's going to be in your exam. But the middle section is really, really important. It's universal as far as me and Rich are concerned, that middle section in terms of skills, which is really important, exam technique and skills that you need to improve on, because sometimes it's not always content knowledge that you need to improve. And thirdly, of course, it's the third is year 13 stuff. Ronnie, I know you've been chopping and changing your lives a little bit, so I'm not even going to attempt to try and tell them when the maths live classes are. I'm going to leave that to you.
We've been playing around, me and the maths crew, but we are sort of asymptotically headed towards something that is working really well. The big thing for maths, little and often. So it is way, way better to do. It's kind of like marathon training. When marathon training, you don't save all your runs for a Saturday and then run all day Saturday. You have to do a 2 mile and then an 8 mile and then a 2 mile and then a 10 mile, and that's your week, and you can't combine them together and just do them all at the weekend. And it's really, really similar with maths. You are brain training, really. So little and often is super duper important. The other thing is constantly coming back to stuff. So for first years, a graph sketch and an indices question and a completing the square every single day. For second years, integrating every single day, differentiating every single day. So the maths is Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. They are lots shorter, but they and there's a lovely new feature this week, which I'm very excited about, where you can vote for what the next class is on. So people have voted today. So today at 12 o'clock, I had a look at the votes. So we are going to be doing algebraic division, but easier than algebraic division, and factorising cubics with the first years. Second years, we're going to be doing all of the trig identities that you need, how to learn them and how to apply them to equations and proofs. And then people are currently voting for tomorrow's session. So I do not know what tomorrow's session is on until 12 o'clock tomorrow.
We've got a few nice comments from guys in here, one from T-Boy. We're a lifesaver, so hopefully your pharmacy degree is going well, T-Boy. Hopefully there's not, you're not impacted too much by coronavirus at the moment. Ruhab reckons all teachers need to use the TT method to teach every student in the UK. That would be nice. We'd love to see that, absolutely. Awo just started in the year 12, already got 2 A's in chem tests. Boom. Loving hearing that. I love some chemistry specific field feedback. And AM. So you were asking how much was kind of TT themselves and school responsible for them feeling good coming out of their exam. So that's awesome.
Great.
Yeah, really, really good. Is there a question I saw down here? Alex.
Today, was it 7, Ronnie? Did we confirm that?
Sorry?
Was it 7 p.m. today for maths?
Yeah, 7 p.m. for first years and 7:45 for second years.
Okay. Wonderful.
Alexi, how much time should my BMAT revision take? Not only physics for about 2 years, doing further maths at high school, how to plan it wisely. So, so the BMAT and UCAT tests, I mean, I think preparation is really, really important. An ex-student of ours who was it that did it? The UCAT? I know it's similar to BMAT.
Was it Yasmin?
No, it's one of our ex-students. She ended up in like the top 10% of the UK or something like that. She did amazingly well at it, but she just used the resources online. From the UCAT and BMAT websites. But Yasmin, has got some amazing advice for BMAT and UCAT revision. So what I'm going to do is I think they're already up there. Or maybe not. I'll tell you what we can do is, if you look at our past lives on YouTube, there are some of our current students at the time, but our BAs talking about what they did to revise for those extra tests that you have to do to get in. So your starting point is there, but very, very shortly, over the next couple of weeks, I would say, I'm going to be updating the TT Common Room course with a page specifically about UCAT and BMAT and stuff like that. And I think there's already one video in there, actually. So go and check that out. It's the best advice we can give. Well, not us, but students who've been successful at it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. So yeah, we did. There was a whole week of live classes about applying to university and stuff like that. So check out the past videos, past live streams on our YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit subscribe because we do. I've been doing some little impromptu live classes. So yeah, if you don't subscribe, then you won't necessarily find out when they're going on. A few little action hours going on for our YouTube community as well.
Okay, cool.
Right. Where are we at? We're at 1:30. Wow.
We
don't
are.
normally finish on sort of general finishing time is 1:30, and we always carry on asking extra questions. But my live classes this week are coming up Thursdays. So my AS focus this week is going to be, as voted by the students from last week, you chose to do lots of questions this week. So that's you're asleep in the bed that you've made. You've asked to do the questions. So it's going to be mixed questions on the 3 topics we've covered so far. So a bit of carbohydrates, a bit of lipids, a bit of nucleic acids. So we'll get some questions in on those. Maybe if I can find some cross-topic questions, you're going to get some of them. The skills focus is going to be evaluation of a practical questions. We did the theory behind evaluating a practical 2 weeks ago. So you're going to get some questions on how to evaluate a practical and get some examples. And the A-level focus is going to be mixed questions between photosynthesis and respiration. And there's definitely some crossover questions because they both share some commonalities in the biochemistry. Some of the electron transport chain is the same for both. So I'll find some questions, some nice tricky ones. Be prepared because I'm going to try and catch you out with some of those questions this week, and then we'll look at where you went wrong and why, and then hopefully that will be a big learning experience for everyone there. So if you want to spot up in advance, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acids, and photosynthesis respiration are the topics that we're covering.
Yeah, so for me on Wednesday, first years, I'm going to be going through ionization energies, but I'm probably going to be talking a little wider than that. So obviously we'll nail that down in that first third there. We're going to be looking at using the data sheet and rearranging equations. And I don't mean chemical equations, I mean just general equations, because I think it's such an important skill and so many students lose marks in it. So we're going to be covering that. And then we're looking at redox, which is a jahonking, is that a word? A massive topic in year 13, redox. So we're going to just kind of touch base and you look at the major impacts of that in year 13 because it creeps into every other aspect of year 13 redox. So we're going to see how far we can get in that 40 minutes just to scratch the surface of it. Scarlett, question. Okay, Scarlett's got a question about the course, and I've got to answer this real quick. So it's about the exam guide. Oh, no, that's not the one I want. Just says OCR, that. Oh, it keeps moving, that's why. So in the exam guide, okay, when you are a TT member, you get the exam guide. Why are there questions from other exam boards in there? Because you signed up to AQA, EdXL, or OCR. The reason is because Rich and I, because they're all the same for maths, aren't they, Ronnie? You didn't have to kind of curate those.
They're all the same. That's not a coincidence. That was a rule set by Ofqual.
I wish they could do the same.
So they literally are. They're literally word for word the same. There is tiny differences in interpretation on the odd thing, but that is only applies to AQA, and it says it really clearly. AQA students don't have to do this. There's only like 2 tiny little things, but basically, yeah, it's the exact same spec for maths.
So essentially, they're in there because Rich and I, for biology and chemistry, have curated the papers for you. So there are some differences, of course, between the 3 exam boards for biology and chemistry, but you can use those curated papers. Now, what that means is we've blanked out all the bits that are not relevant to you. So it's just like you've got 3 times more papers than you would have had normally because we've done that for you. So you can go and use those papers with confidence that they contain everything that you need to know and nothing that you don't. So it's just extra questions on redox and, I don't know, Rich, biology topic.
Yeah, I mean, some of those questions that don't come up very often, then there might only be 0 or 1 question from your exam board since 2015, since they launched those papers. But the other exam boards, that they cover the same topics and they have asked questions on that. So we can give you a greater depth of questions by just resourcing those, but we're only going to choose the ones that are relevant to you. You won't find questions in there that are completely irrelevant. If OCR do it and AQA doesn't, then we won't put those questions in the exam guide. That's what those curated papers
So
are.
that's actually what I did, was to go back. So there are new things in the new spec, for example, drawing cobweb diagrams and staircase diagrams, and that wasn't in the old spec, but it was in the old spec for one particular exam board for further maths 2. So I've gone through all of the old spec papers, core 1, core 2, core 3, core 4, mechanics 1, mechanics 2, stats 1, stats 2, and further pure 1 and further pure 2, and extracted from all of those for the last few years before the crossover to the new spec, all of the questions which could come up in the new spec. So it's a huge pool, like thousands of questions in the exam guide on all of the topics that could come up. So you don't have to just look at the new spec papers. There's also banks of exam questions on each topic as well.
I wonder if I can. I've got one of the curated papers open here, Rich. I wonder if I can share my screen and just show what it looks like.
One or two things will happen when you click that button. Either it'll work or it won't.
Yeah. Well, let's give it a go. Let's try share screen. And actually, I need to zoom in a little bit here because that is. Are you seeing it? I'm looking at my screen, obviously. So let me know if that is. Nothing nope. whatsoever. Let me just check that oh no, okay, now let me hit shot. Any dice on that? I now have a red
there you go. If I move myself and Ronnie, there you go, you're in.
Okay, so like this is what you'll see. This is, if we look at the title up here, Biology OCR Paper 1 2017, but it's curated for AQA students. So an AQA student can look at this paper and just be like, I can do all of these questions because it's just basically it's a biology exam. And as you go through it, you'll see that the questions that are not for AQA students, we've just covered over with a watermark that says NR, so not relevant. So that's just coming up, although the scroll is going incredibly slowly right now. But yeah, all of these questions totally relevant. You can do them all. And then when we get to this last one, we just see not relevant. And that means that this one is about kidneys. AQA do the kidneys, but you actually don't have to know that specific part about the kidneys. So we basically say that you don't need to do it anymore. So that's what they look like. They look like a normal exam, except you'll see some that have just got questions ruled out basically to say, you don't need to do this question, which increases your resources. You get 3 times as many past papers, basically.
Oh dear, Ronnie's fallen off the Skype planet. I don't know why.
Well, I think we've done our time.
I think we have. We'll see you guys next week. I'm going to be scheduling all the lives for the next few weeks. We'll decide on which one we're going to do next week. But obviously, if you've got any questions in the meantime, you can leave them in the comments here. If you're not a TT member, but if you are a TT member, go and check out that new course. Okay, join the forum. As you do your exams this October, anybody that's doing them, just put in there what was in the exam. You can kind of, get in there and have a good old moan about them as well, because that's what, we all love moaning about an exam when we finish with them, right?
Totally, we do. And I'm just going to remind my A-level biology students, let me know, write down today, if you did paper 1 today, write down the math skills. Was it percentage change? Was it standard form? What were the skills that they asked you to do for maths? What were the practicals that they examined in today's exam? What were the statistics skills they examined in today's exam? And what topics can you remember? The more specific you can be, the better. But if you know that there was like a giant question on topic A, then just basically write that down. If it was just a fringe little question, then let me know. Keep that list, send it to me in the course comments. I'm going to collate that for AQA OCR Excel if you guys send me the information. And then if you've sent that to me, do the same for paper 2. And then after paper 2, I can start making some predictions for you for paper 3. But without seeing the papers that were going to be sat in the summer, it's impossible for us to make any sort of informed predictions. But yeah, we'll do that as best we can to help you out, obviously, to support you with those exams. And I think that's pretty much it from me. Scarlett, I just noticed you said you're finding the lives quite difficult here in year 12s. I have chucked you in the deep end a little bit. Ask me a question in the course if you need any guidance. If you want to brush up on some of those topics in advance of the class, then obviously you should hit the ground running when we cover those questions.
Cool. Cheers, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.